I've only seen that happen one time, but it was really significant. So she's sitting directly across from Bert, and her thing goes, whoop.
No way.
But then with everybody watching, it came back up. Don't eliminate things just because you don't understand it.
What was your position at INSCOM?
Well, we called it the Chief of Human Technology. He created the position. People used to ask what I do, and I said, well, I'm a freelance colonel.
Chief of Human Technology. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, well, we were looking at, and this is where we get into other aspects. You talk to Joe, the remote viewing program is going. Stubblebine is very interested. Funding is an issue that's pretty significant here because it was a time when you had a fair amount of funding that, could be used. It's still true to some area, but discretional funding, we didn't have to. And Bert was interested. And there's an important figure by the name of Jack Houck who comes into this. And Jack is at McDonnell Douglas at the time. And he had watched Uri Geller and had come up with the, quote, spoon bending process that is now popular. And so some friends, he used to come to Washington because he was also a CEO, did contract work for CIA. And so he was back and forth in Washington, so we heard about this, and he was just starting, he's got to be 82, just starting the spoon bending thing. And what he had found is that this was a teachable skill. And he had based it on the stuff that Geller was doing. But he was having parties and would invite groups of people in, and we heard about that. We had one. So that's kind of, I told Stubblebine about it, and he said, well, let's see if we can do that. So I got a hold of Jack and invited him to, I was then in an apartment high-rise in Washington, Northern Virginia area, and we have PK party. So we're sitting kind of on the floor, looking around in more or less a semicircle. And there were some significant people there. People know the history. Andrea Puharich was there. I don't know if you know him, but this goes back into World War II, where he was interested and had worked with the agency. And I mean, these are heavy hitters in the psi phenomena and R&D area. And so Bert's sitting there, much like we are now. And there was a medium who was there. Another one of the key people had been Rickover's technical director, and who knew the medium and brought her. But anyway, the way it works is you go through an hour or so, and some of the stuff's physical, so it's hard to say whether that has any significance. But the graduate session, you end up holding two forks like this that are matched, and no physical force. And so she's sitting directly across from Bert, and her thing goes, whoop.
No way.
With no physical force. That's what we got. Oh, shit.
You saw this.
This is real, yeah. I've had later experiences, but I learned how to teach it and ran these things for a while. But it was this thing, like I say, in front of the commander, just drops a full 90 degrees. With no physical force, said, need to look at this. So started doing serious studies and then, see, we would have love-ins. We had 06 commands around the world. And so every quarter, the commanders would come in and discuss what are you going to do, what's going forward, what's happening literally in the world at the time. Remember, this is the bad old days. We're still talking Soviet Union. And so he was very interested in, so I ended up running sessions for them, which was not always appreciated by the folks who was interested. But the point, because I asked the question, is what are you going to do, Ben's tank barrels? And you go, no, computers. And remember, computers are just emerging. I can move let's think about moving electrons. And the key issue there is I don't have to destroy, I just have to make computers unreliable. A lot of stuff there. But anyway, the big lesson that Bert wanted to get in, it really didn't have to do with the psychokinesis. It had to do with don't eliminate things just because you don't understand it. See, we had been blindsided by the Soviets several times. Sputnik, for instance, was one. And there were several others. Joe, did he talk about the submarine?
Yes, he did.
I mean, that was one that was oh, wow. And the point was we had all the information, and our boat builders said, don't believe it. We never heard if it would go to depth, anything that big would crush, et cetera, et cetera. And we didn't have any word at the time of a radically different Soviet subsystem. And as you know from the thing, he came out and he had laid out, the tubes are forward of the sail and that sort of thing. So our point was that had happened to us on several occasions, and when you look back, you found out you had the information, but it had been disregarded. So the idea to these colonels was, don't just disregard something because you don't do it, because you've now had personal experience with things that happened that you didn't think could happen. And so that was one of the emphases that...
What was that like for you to be in that room when that spoon hit 90? I mean, that was
a no shit moment. That was because I had seen a little bit of bending before, but nothing that dramatic. Now I've seen even more dramatic since. There was one of these where Levins, we were doing at Xerox Center. This is one where I can send you I have the forks on it. But same thing, we're in a semicircle and I'm doing it and there's grumbling. I mean, basically there were people who didn't like the stuff going on. And it happened to be a lieutenant colonel who was a liaison from Europe who was in the session and holds it up and same thing, the thing drops a full 90 degrees and they scream. And I'm going, but I did not see that. But I have a GS-18, the science advisor behind does. And so we're looking, and there was the guy next to him that yelled, and this thing just fell over. But then with everybody watching, it came back up, went down, came about halfway back up and stopped. I mean, literally waved. Now, that's the end of one. I've only seen that happen one time. But it was really significant. Had some other pretty good bending that happened that night, but absolutely no physical force and this thing moving, Now, I said, I have them. The reason he put that down, and he said, I wish that hadn't happened. Scared him. I mean, normally we let people take the stuff home with them. And it scared him so badly that he just left it. And I still have those forks.
You still
I understand he went back to Europe. He was American, but liaison there, and did it once more and just said, enough. Don't want to do that again.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.